A CEO stands before his board of directors, his hands trembling. "My daughter is my priority," he declares. "If that makes me unsuitable for leadership, then find someone else." 20 years of empire building, hanging by a thread. His choice will shock everyone. But it all started with 13 failures, one blue puppet, and a woman who saw what no one else could. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. Marcus Thornton stood in the doorway of his daughter's bedroom watching her rock back and forth in the corner for the 13th time that week. She clutched the same worn teddy bear she always held, her fingers tracing the stitched patterns with mechanical precision, the same motion repeated over and over. Her eyes never met his. They never met anyone's. The room was filled with everything a 4-year-old could want. Bright toys lined the shelves, soft pillows covered the reading nook, and colorful murals decorated every wall. But none of it mattered. His daughter Maya existed in a world he couldn't enter, and every attempt to reach her had ended the same way. Silence, distance, failure. Marcus was 41 years old and ran one of the most successful tech companies in the country. He had built his empire from nothing, working brutal hours and making calculated decisions that turned ideas into billions. Investors respected him. Competitors feared him. The media called him a genius. But standing in that doorway, watching his daughter rock in isolation, he felt like the biggest failure on earth. He had hired 13 nannies in the past year alone. Each one came with impressive credentials, years of experience with special needs children, glowing recommendations, specialized training. The first nanny lasted 3 weeks before she quit. The second lasted 10 days. The third made it almost a month. Some left crying, others left frustrated. A few just stopped showing up. Marcus couldn't blame them. Maya's autism made connection nearly impossible. She didn't speak. She didn't play. She didn't respond to touch or voice or presence. Loud noises sent her into meltdowns that lasted hours. New routines triggered panic. Eye contact was non-existent. She lived in patterns, repeating the same movements, touching the same objects, following the same invisible rules that only she understood. Marcus had spent hundreds of thousands on therapists, specialists, and experimental treatments. Nothing changed. His ex-wife had left 2 years ago, unable to handle the strain. She visited Maya once a month, but the visits were brief and painful. She would sit across the room, trying to smile, trying to connect, and Maya would simply turn away, rocking, humming, lost in her private universe. After each visit, Marcus would find his ex-wife crying in the hallway. The house they lived in was massive, a modern glass structure overlooking the city, filled with expensive furniture and cutting-edge technology. But it felt empty. Marcus worked from home most days now, unable to leave Maya for long. His office was just down the hall, close enough to hear if something went wrong. He had canceled trips, skipped important meetings, and delegated responsibilities he once controlled personally. Every morning followed the same routine. Marcus woke Maya at 7, helped her dress, and guided her downstairs for breakfast. She only ate 3 things: plain oatmeal, apple slices, and milk. Anything else triggered refusal or worse, a meltdown. After breakfast, she would return to her room and begin her patterns, lining up blocks, spinning toys, rocking, humming. Marcus would try to join her sometimes, sitting on the floor nearby, speaking softly, offering a toy or a book. Maya never acknowledged him. She would continue her rituals as if he wasn't there. The pattern had become unbearable. Nanny after nanny arrived with hope and left with defeat. Each departure felt like another confirmation that his daughter was unreachable. Marcus had stopped believing anyone could help. That morning, Marcus sat in his office staring at his computer screen. The 13th nanny had quit the night before. Marcus had already started searching for a replacement. The agency sent over new profiles. He clicked through them mechanically, barely absorbing the information, when one application caught his attention. It wasn't polished like the others. The resume was shorter, simpler. The photo showed a young black woman with natural hair pulled back, wearing a plain sweater and a calm expression. Her name was Zara Mitchell. She was 28 years old. But what made Marcus pause was a single line in her cover letter. "I don't promise results," she had written. "I only promise to see your daughter as she is, not as I want her to be." Marcus read the line again. It was different from the confident guarantees other nannies offered. There was no claim of expertise, no bold statement about fixing problems, just a quiet acknowledgement that Maya was a person, not a project. Marcus scheduled an interview for the next afternoon. Zara arrived exactly on time, dressed simply in jeans and a soft gray cardigan. She didn't carry herself with the polished professionalism the other nannies had shown. Marcus asked the usual questions: experience, training, approach to behavior management. Zara answered clearly, but without rehearsed quality. When Marcus asked about her biggest challenge, Zara paused before answering. "A family wanted me to make their son act normal," she said quietly. "They didn't want to understand him. They just wanted him to stop being different. I couldn't do that. So I left." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. He explained Maya's routines, her triggers, her isolation. Zara listened without interrupting. When he finished, she asked a single question: "What makes her happy?" Marcus opened his mouth to answer and realized he didn't know. He had spent so much time trying to fix Maya that he had never stopped to notice what brought her joy, if anything did. He admitted this to Zara. "That's where we start then," she said. Marcus offered her the position that afternoon. That night, Marcus stood in Maya's doorway again, watching her rock with her teddy bear. Tomorrow would bring the 14th attempt. He didn't expect it to be different. But something about Zara's calm presence had planted a small, fragile seed of hope. Zara arrived the next morning carrying a simple canvas bag. She greeted him politely and requested to meet Maya without any instructions or expectations. "Let me observe first," she said. Marcus led Zara upstairs to Maya's room. Maya sat in her usual corner, rocking gently, her fingers moving across the teddy bear's worn fabric. She didn't look up when they entered. Zara stepped inside and paused just past the doorway, staying still and silent. She didn't approach Maya. She didn't speak. She simply stood there, observing. After several minutes, Zara lowered herself to the floor, sitting cross-legged near the doorway, maintaining distance. She didn't face Maya directly. Instead, she angled herself slightly to the side, her posture relaxed. Marcus had seen other nannies try similar approaches, but they always pushed too soon. Zara did none of that. She simply sat, breathing evenly. Maya rocked. Zara sat. The silence stretched between them, unforced and strangely peaceful. An hour passed, then another. Marcus finally went back upstairs, expecting to find Zara sitting in the same position. But when he reached Maya's doorway, he stopped cold. Zara had moved closer to Maya, and Maya's rocking had slowed. Zara was humming. It was so quiet. Marcus almost didn't hear it at first. A low, melodic sound, simple and repetitive. Not a song. More like a pattern of tones, rising and falling in a gentle loop. Maya's fingers stopped moving across the teddy bear. Her head tilted slightly. Then she resumed her rocking, but slower now, matching the rhythm of Zara's humming. Marcus felt his breath catch. He had never seen Maya respond to sound like that. Therapists had tried music therapy. Maya always ignored them or became agitated. But this was different. Zara wasn't performing. She was simply creating a pattern, something Maya could recognize and sync with. By lunchtime, Zara came downstairs. She asked Marcus about Maya's eating routine, and he explained the limited menu. Zara prepared the usual meal and brought it upstairs, setting it on the small table near Maya's corner. Maya didn't acknowledge the food. Zara sat down nearby and began eating her own lunch, not watching Maya, not encouraging her, just eating. After a few minutes, Maya reached for an apple slice. Marcus watched through the monitor as his daughter ate, while Zara continued her meal in silence. It was such a small thing, but it felt monumental. By evening, when Marcus came to take over, he found Zara sitting on the floor with Maya's blocks scattered between them. Zara was building a simple tower, placing one block on top of another with slow, deliberate movements. Maya wasn't participating, but she was watching. Her eyes tracked Zara's hands. Marcus had tried building blocks with Maya dozens of times. She had never looked at him. When the tower reached 5 blocks high, Zara stopped and waited. Maya stared at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out one small hand and knocked the tower down. Marcus tensed, waiting for Maya to become upset. But Maya's expression didn't change. She simply picked up one block and held it. Zara began building the tower again. When it reached 5 blocks, she stopped. Maya knocked it down again. This time, after the blocks scattered, Maya made a sound. Not a word, just a small exhale, almost like a laugh. Marcus froze in the doorway. Zara built the tower again. Maya knocked it down. Another small sound escaped Maya's lips, slightly louder. By the time Zara left that evening, Maya had knocked down the tower 17 times. Each time, that small sound emerged, growing slightly more distinct. Marcus walked Zara to the door, his mind spinning. Before he could ask any questions, Zara spoke. "She likes patterns," Zara said simply. "So I gave her a pattern she could control." Marcus nodded slowly. The other nannies had tried patterns too, but they had imposed those patterns on Maya. Zara had done the opposite. She had created a pattern and let Maya decide what to do with it. That night, Marcus stood in Maya's doorway as always. But something was different. Maya's movements seemed calmer. The tension had lessened. He thought about that sound she had made, that almost laugh. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Marcus felt something that wasn't defeat. Over the following days, a routine developed. Zara would arrive, sit with Maya, and hum. Sometimes she would build the block tower. Sometimes she would simply exist in Maya's space, present but not intrusive. And Maya began to change. Not dramatically, but in small, almost invisible ways that accumulated over time. Maya's meltdowns decreased. By the end of the first week, she had gone 3 full days without one. One afternoon, Marcus was working when he heard something unusual. Laughter. Not Maya's almost laugh. This was real laughter. He rushed to the monitor and saw Zara sitting on the floor with a simple hand puppet, a fuzzy blue sock puppet. Zara was making the puppet dance, bouncing it in rhythm with her usual humming pattern. And Maya was laughing. Her face was lit up in a way Marcus had never seen. Her eyes were focused on the puppet. And she was laughing. A clear, bright sound. Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. He grabbed his phone and recorded the moment. That evening, when Zara came downstairs, Marcus stopped her. "How did you know?" he asked. "How to reach her?" Zara was quiet for a moment. "I didn't know," she finally said. "I still don't. I'm just paying attention to who Maya is instead of who I want her to be." "Can you teach me?" Marcus asked. "Of course," Zara said. Over the following weeks, Zara began showing Marcus the small techniques she used. How to create patterns Maya could control. How to be present without demanding attention. How to observe without judgment. Marcus tried to copy Zara's pattern with the puppet. Maya watched with interest but didn't laugh. "Give her time to understand it," Zara explained. Marcus continued, forcing himself to be patient. After several minutes, Maya's expression shifted. And then she laughed. Just once, but it was there. By the end of the second week, Maya was making eye contact. Not consistently, and not for long, but it happened. She would glance at Zara's face when the puppet appeared. She would look toward Marcus when he entered the room. Those brief moments of connection felt like miracles. The third week brought a new development. Zara introduced a routine that involved music and movement. She would play a song on her phone, always the same song, a gentle instrumental piece. While it played, she would sway slowly. Maya watched the first time, rocking as usual. The second time, her rocking began to sync with Zara's swaying. By the 5th time, Maya stood up. Marcus watched through the monitor, holding his breath as his daughter rose from her corner, still clutching her teddy bear, and began to sway with Zara. They moved together, not touching, each in their own space, but connected through the shared rhythm. When Marcus's ex-wife, Diane, visited that weekend, Marcus explained what had been happening. They went upstairs together. Zara invited Diane to sit near Maya's corner. Zara pulled out the blue puppet and began the familiar routine. Within minutes, Maya was laughing. Diane covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. After the puppet play ended, Zara gently guided Diane through the movements. Diane's hands shook as she put on the puppet. "Slower," Zara said softly. "Let her set the pace." Diane adjusted, and after a few minutes, Maya looked directly at her. The eye contact lasted less than a second, but it was there. Diane let out a choked sob. Later, Diane sat with Marcus. "I can't believe this," she whispered. "After everything we tried, and this woman just walked in and understood her." Over the following months, both Marcus and Diane worked with Zara to learn how to connect with Maya. Diane's visits increased from once a month to once a week. Each visit brought small progresses, eye contact that lasted longer, laughter that came more easily, and eventually something neither parent had dared to hope for: Maya's first word. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon during the puppet routine. The puppet bounced in rhythm, and Maya laughed as usual. Then, suddenly, she pointed at the puppet and said, "Blue." The room went completely silent. "Blue." All three adults stared at Maya. Then she said it again. "Blue." Marcus felt his knees weaken. Diane gasped. Zara remained calm, though tears streamed down her face. "Yes," Zara said softly. "Blue." Maya smiled, actually smiled, and pointed at the puppet again. "Blue," she repeated. From that moment forward, Maya's world began to expand. The single word became multiple words over the following weeks. Want puppet, music now, build tower. Her speech was halting, direct, without fluid complexity. But it was communication. Real, intentional communication. By the 6th month of Zara's employment, Maya was attending a specialized preschool program 3 mornings a week. Zara accompanied her, helping the teachers understand Maya's patterns and needs. The transition was rocky at first. New environments were always challenging for Maya, but she had developed enough communication skills to express discomfort instead of melting down. "Want home," she would say when overwhelmed. Zara would take her to a quiet corner, hum their familiar pattern, and Maya would gradually calm. Then Zara would ask, "Ready to try again?" Sometimes Maya said yes. Sometimes she said no, and they would leave. Both responses were honored. The preschool teachers were initially skeptical of Zara's methods. They had been trained in traditional autism interventions that emphasized behavioral modification and structured rewards. But as they watched Maya's progress, their skepticism turned to curiosity. One teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, asked Zara to teach the staff her techniques during their weekly planning session. Zara spent an hour explaining the philosophy behind her approach. "It's not about changing Maya," Zara said. "It's about creating space where she feels safe enough to engage on her own terms." She demonstrated the humming pattern, the way she built towers for Maya to knock down, how she used repetition and rhythm to establish trust. The teachers took notes, asked questions, and began implementing small changes in how they interacted with Maya and other autistic students in the program. Within weeks, the entire classroom dynamic had shifted. Children who had previously been labeled as difficult or resistant began showing more engagement. Parents noticed the difference. Several asked specifically about Zara's methods, wanting to learn how to apply them at home. Zara created simple handouts explaining the core principles. Observe before acting. Create patterns the child can control. Be present without demanding attention. Match their energy, instead of forcing them to match yours. The handouts spread beyond that single classroom. Other preschools in the area requested copies. A local autism support organization asked Zara to speak at their monthly meeting. She hesitated at first, uncomfortable with public attention, but Marcus encouraged her. "What you've done for Maya, other families need that too," he said. "You have knowledge that could change lives." Zara agreed to speak. The meeting was held in a community center, and over 50 parents attended. Zara stood at the front of the room, feeling nervous but determined. She told them about Maya, about the 13 nannies who had failed, about her own brother who had died because no one understood him. She explained her methods, not as a miracle cure, but as a different way of seeing autistic children. "They're not broken," Zara said. They're speaking a different language. We just have to learn it." The response was overwhelming. Parents lined up afterward to thank her, to share their own struggles, to ask for guidance. Several offered to pay her to work with their children. Zara took phone numbers, promised to follow up, and left feeling both exhausted and energized. Over the following months, Zara began consulting with other families while maintaining her primary role with Maya. She would visit homes, observe children, and teach parents the same techniques she had used. Not every child responded the same way Maya had. Each autistic child was unique, with different needs and different ways of communicating. But the core philosophy remained consistent. See them as they are. Create space for them to engage. Be patient. One boy, 7-year-old Marcus, watched from the sidelines as Zara's influence spread. He felt proud, but also slightly possessive. Part of him wanted to keep Zara's time and attention focused solely on Maya. But he recognized that was selfish. Zara had a gift, and other families deserved to benefit from it. Marcus restructured his entire company around Maya's needs. He appointed a new CEO to handle day-to-day operations while he moved into an advisory role that allowed him to work from home most days. His board initially resisted. They worried about investor confidence, about leadership stability, about the company's direction. Marcus called a special board meeting to address their concerns. He stood at the head of the conference table, looking at the faces of people he had worked with for years. "I built this company from nothing," he said. "I gave it everything I had for 2 decades. I made you all very wealthy in the process. Now I'm asking for your support as I shift my priorities. My daughter is my priority. If that makes me unsuitable for leadership, then find someone else." The room was silent for a long moment. Then the board chair, an older woman named Margaret who had been with the company from the beginning, spoke. "I've watched you build this empire, Marcus. I've seen you make impossible deals and turn failing projects into successes, but I've never respected you more than I do right now." The board voted unanimously to support his transition. Some members privately admitted that they admired his choice, that they wished they had been brave enough to prioritize family over career when their own children were young. Marcus's decision sent ripples through the business world. Articles were written about his choice. Some praised him as a forward-thinking leader who understood work-life balance. Others criticized him as soft, suggesting he was abandoning his responsibilities. Marcus ignored both the praise and criticism. He didn't need validation from strangers. He had his daughter, and she was thriving. That was enough. Diane quit her own high-pressure job and took a part-time position that allowed more time with Maya. She worked as a consultant, setting her own hours and choosing her own projects. The financial impact was significant. They went from 2 high incomes to 2 moderate incomes. But neither Marcus nor Diane regretted it. Money had never been the problem. Time had been. Attention had been. Understanding had been. Now they had all 3. She and Marcus weren't getting back together. They both understood that their relationship had run its course, that they had grown in different directions and wanted different things from life. But they became effective co-parents in a way that had seemed impossible before. They coordinated schedules, practiced Zara's techniques together, celebrated every small victory. They attended Maya's preschool events as a united front, sitting side by side and cheering when Maya participated in group activities. Other divorced parents looked at them with envy, wondering how they maintained such a positive relationship. The secret was simple. They had both learned to put Maya's needs above their own egos and old grievances. "When you're focused on helping your child thrive," Marcus once explained to a friend, "the petty stuff just doesn't matter anymore." Maya's 5th birthday party was small, just the 3 adults and Maya, but it was the first birthday she had truly participated in. She helped choose decorations, pointing at blue balloons. She ate chocolate cake without resistance. And when they sang happy birthday, Maya didn't cover her ears. She watched their faces, swaying to the rhythm, and when the song ended, she clapped twice and said, "More." They sang it 5 times, until Maya was satisfied. That night, after Diane had left and Maya was asleep, Marcus sat with Zara. "I need to ask you something," Marcus said. "Why did you take this job?" Zara was quiet for a long moment. "I lost my younger brother when I was 19, she finally said. He had severe autism, mostly nonverbal. My parents didn't know how to reach him. They tried, but everything came from wanting to fix him, not understand him. Zara paused. He died in an accident. He wandered away during a meltdown and he couldn't communicate with the people who found him. He got scared, ran into traffic. I'm so sorry, Marcus said. After he died, I realized he had been trying to communicate his whole life, Zara continued. We just weren't listening in the right way. So I decided to really learn how to listen to people like him, people like Maya. Marcus understood then. You've changed Maya's life, Marcus said. You've changed mine too. Maya did the work, Zara said. I just made space for her to do it. The years that followed brought continued growth. Maya learned to read at age 6, devouring picture books. She developed an intense interest in colors and patterns, spending hours creating elaborate designs with blocks, tiles, and eventually paint. By age 8, she was attending mainstream school with support services. She had one close friend, a quiet boy who shared her interest in patterns. Marcus had learned to let go of the future he had once imagined for Maya and embrace the future she was creating. She would probably never be the social, outgoing child he had unconsciously expected. But she was brilliant in her own way, seeing patterns others missed. She was kind, and she was happy. Diane remarried when Maya was 9. Her new husband, David, was gentle. Understanding Maya's needs came first. Maya called him David, never Dad, and David never pushed for more. Zara eventually transitioned from full-time nanny to periodic consultant as Maya needed less intensive support. She taught Maya's teachers and therapists how to understand Maya's communication style, but she never fully left. Once a week she would visit Maya, and they would spend an afternoon together, doing their old routines. On Maya's 10th birthday, she stood in front of her family and did something she had never done before. She gave a speech. Her words were carefully prepared, written on cards she had made herself. Maya read slowly. When I was little, I was alone. Not because I wanted to be, because I didn't know how to be with people. Then Zara came. She didn't try to change me. She learned my language instead of making me learn hers. Maya looked up, making eye contact with Zara. You saw me, she said simply. Now I'm not alone. I have my family. I have my friend Daniel. I have my teachers who understand me. And I have myself, who I finally understand too. She set down her cards. Thank you for my blue puppet. Thank you for learning to listen. Thank you for letting me be Maya. The room erupted in applause. Maya covered her ears briefly, then lowered her hands and smiled. That evening, after the guests had left, Marcus stood in her doorway one last time, watching her sleep. She clutched the old teddy bear, though now it sat beside her. Her face was peaceful. He thought about those early years, the 13 failed nannies, the desperation. He thought about the moment Zara had walked through his door, carrying nothing but patience and willingness to see his daughter as she truly was. Marcus had spent his career solving problems, building systems. But his greatest achievement wasn't his company. It was learning to stop trying to fix his daughter and simply love her. Maya had never been broken. She had just been waiting for someone to speak her language. As Maya approached her teens, her interests expanded beyond visual art. She developed a fascination with music theory, particularly the mathematical relationships between notes. Marcus bought her a keyboard, and within weeks Maya was composing simple melodies based on numerical sequences. A music teacher offered private lessons in theory. Maya accepted immediately, absorbing concepts with remarkable speed. By age 12, Maya had developed a clear sense of her future. She wanted to continue creating art and music. She wanted to live independently, though she acknowledged needing support systems. And she wanted to help other autistic children understand that different didn't mean less. Maya surprised them when she expressed interest in public speaking, carefully prepared presentations about autism and neurodiversity. She wanted to visit schools and share her experience. Marcus was hesitant, but Zara encouraged it. She's ready, Zara said. Maya's first speaking engagement was at a parent support group. She prepared a 30-minute presentation. The audience was 20 parents, all exhausted and desperate for answers, like Marcus had been. Maya stood at the front, her blue canvas bag beside her. She began speaking. When I was 4, I didn't talk, but I was thinking. I was always thinking. I just couldn't get the thoughts out. People thought I was empty inside. But I was full. Too full. The room was silent. So when your child doesn't talk or doesn't look at you, or does the same things over and over, don't think they're empty. They're probably too full. Full of thoughts and feelings they can't express yet. She pulled out a sheet covered in patterns. This is what my brain looks like. Lots of patterns all connecting. When someone talks to me, I have to find the right pattern to answer. Sometimes that takes time. So if you ask your child a question and they don't answer right away, wait. They might be searching for the right pattern. Maya spoke for 30 minutes, covering sensory overload, routine, and the need for acceptance rather than forced normalization. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye. A mother raised her hand. My son is 7 and still nonverbal. Did you think you would ever talk? Maya considered. I didn't think about it. I didn't understand that talking was something I should do. But then someone learned to communicate in my language. After that, I learned to communicate in hers. So maybe try learning your son's language first. That speaking engagement led to others. Maya developed a reputation as an articulate self-advocate, offering insight into an internal world many parents struggle to understand. By 13, Maya was balancing school, art, music, and advocacy work with careful attention to routine. Her daily planner was color-coded. Marcus had learned to trust Maya's self-awareness. Diane had become equally attuned to Maya's needs. She and Marcus co-parented effectively. David had integrated as a supportive presence. Zara's role had shifted from intensive caregiver to mentor and friend. On Maya's 14th birthday, she stood and announced she had something to share. She pulled out documents outlining her goals for the next 4 years. Complete high school through a combination of traditional and independent study. Continue art and music, potentially pursuing both in college. Develop advocacy work into something more structured. And begin learning independent living skills so by 18, she could move into her own apartment with support systems. This is comprehensive, Diane said, voice shaking. Have you thought about what support you'll need? Maya nodded. I'll need someone to help with executive function tasks, like remembering appointments and managing money. I'll probably always need that. But I can do everything else myself. She looked at each person. I know I'm different. I know I'll always need more support than typical people. But I want to live my own life. Not a life where people make decisions for me because they think I can't handle things. I can handle a lot. I just handle it differently. Marcus reached across and took Maya's hand. You can do anything you set your mind to. We'll support you however you need. The following years brought the expected challenges of adolescence, complicated by Maya's autism but not defined by it. She had difficult days when sensory overload made the world feel hostile and overwhelming. The fluorescent lights at school would trigger headaches. The cafeteria noise would send her into anxiety spirals. Classmates who didn't understand her directness sometimes thought she was rude, leading to social conflicts that required mediation. But she also had triumphs that made the difficult days worthwhile. She won a regional art competition, her geometric paintings praised for their mathematical precision and emotional resonance. The judges called her work visionary, noting how she transformed abstract concepts into visual experiences that anyone could appreciate. She performed one of her musical compositions at a local venue during an open mic night. The audience of mostly adults sat in stunned silence as Maya's strange, beautiful melody filled the space. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Several people approached her afterward, asking where they could hear more of her music. Maya set up a simple website where she posted recordings, and within months, she had followers from around the world. She gave a talk about neurodiversity at a youth conference that was recorded and posted online. The video went viral, viewed thousands of times within the first week. Comments poured in from autistic teenagers who felt seen for the first time, from parents who finally understood their children better, from educators who wanted to change their approach. Maya read every comment, responding to many with her characteristic brevity and honesty. Some comments were cruel. mocking her monotone delivery, or questioning whether someone like her should be speaking publicly. Marcus wanted to delete those comments, to protect his daughter from the ugliness, but Maya stopped him. "They don't understand yet," she said. "Maybe they will later. Maybe they won't. Either way, I'm not going to hide." Her resilience amazed Marcus. The little girl who had once been undone by the slightest change in routine was now handling online criticism with remarkable maturity. Zara explained that this wasn't surprising. Maya had spent years building confidence in who she was. That foundation couldn't be shaken by strangers on the internet. By 16, Maya had become a confident self-advocate who knew her needs, could articulate her boundaries, and didn't apologize for being different. She wore her blue clothes proudly, not because anyone told her to, but because that color made her feel calm and centered. She carried her noise-canceling headphones everywhere, putting them on without shame when environments became too loud. She explained her autism to new people matter-of-factly, treating it as simple information rather than a shameful secret. "I'm autistic," she would say, "which means I process information differently than you might. I need extra time to respond to questions sometimes. I don't always make eye contact, but I'm still listening. Loud noises bother me. Is that okay?" Most people responded positively to her directness. They appreciated knowing how to interact with her, rather than having to guess. She had a small but close group of friends, other neurodiverse students who appreciated her honesty and shared her interests. There was Daniel, the quiet boy who loved patterns as much as she did. There was Sophia, a girl with ADHD who talked fast and moved constantly, but never pressured Maya to match her energy. There was James, who had dyslexia and anxiety, but was brilliant at verbal storytelling. Together they formed a friend group that felt safe and accepting. They would meet at each other's homes, engaging in parallel activities, sometimes talking, sometimes sitting in comfortable silence. Their parents marveled at how well they understood each other's needs without having to explain. When college applications loomed in Maya's junior year, she approached the process with her characteristic methodical planning. She spent months researching schools with strong autism support programs, art departments that valued unconventional approaches, and music programs that would accommodate her unique compositional style. She created detailed spreadsheets comparing programs, costs, support services, and campus layouts. She watched virtual tours multiple times, studying the physical spaces to determine which environments would work best for her sensory needs. Marcus offered to hire a college consultant, but Maya declined. "I need to do this myself," she explained. "Finding the right college is about understanding what I need. No one else can do that for me." She narrowed her list to 5 schools and insisted on visiting each one in person. The trips were exhausting, requiring careful planning to manage Maya's need for routine while traveling, but they were also illuminating. At the first school, Maya knew within an hour that it wasn't right. The campus was too large, too crowded, too chaotic. At the second, the support services felt patronizing, treating autistic students like children who needed constant supervision, rather than adults who needed specific accommodations. But at the third school, a small liberal arts college 3 hours from home, Maya felt something shift. The campus was compact and walkable. The buildings were older, with high ceilings and natural light instead of fluorescent glare. The art studios were spacious and quiet, with individual work areas where students could focus without constant social interaction. The music department was small, just a dozen students, and the faculty member who met with them spent an hour listening to Maya's compositions and asking thoughtful questions about her process. The disability support office was run by a woman named Dr. Chen, who was herself autistic. She understood Maya's needs without lengthy explanations. "We don't try to make our students fit into a neurotypical mold," Dr. Chen said. "We help them build on their strengths while providing support for their challenges." She showed them the supported housing option, small apartments where students lived independently, but had access to staff members who could help with executive function tasks like budgeting, scheduling, and meal planning. Maya could have her own space, her own routines, but wouldn't be completely alone if she struggled. As they walked around campus, Maya was quiet, processing everything. That evening back at their hotel, she told Marcus, "This is the one." "Are you sure?" Marcus asked. You still have 2 more schools to visit. I'm sure, Maya said. This place understands. Maya applied early decision and was accepted in December of her senior year. The acceptance letter included a generous scholarship and a personal note from Dr. Chen welcoming her to the community. Marcus watched his daughter read the letter, her face breaking into a rare, genuine smile, and felt his throat tighten with emotion. 4 months later came graduation from high school. Maya walked across the stage to receive her diploma, wearing her blue dress and a subtle smile. The audience applauded politely for each graduate, but when Maya's name was called, her section of the bleachers erupted. Marcus, Diane, David, Zara, and all of Maya's friend group and their families cheered loudly. Maya didn't cover her ears this time. She had prepared herself for the noise, had decided it was worth the brief discomfort to share this moment. After the ceremony, as families took photos, Maya's art teacher approached with tears in her eyes. Teaching Maya has been one of the greatest privileges of my career, she said. She taught me as much as I taught her. The summer before college passed quickly. Zara took Maya on their week-long coastal trip, which proved to be exactly what Maya needed. The beach town was quiet and predictable. They established a routine, morning walks to watch wave patterns, afternoons spent reading or sketching, evenings cooking simple meals in their cottage. Maya tried new foods without the pressure of an audience. She experimented with different textures and flavors, discovering that she actually liked some things she had always assumed she would hate. She successfully ordered for herself at restaurants, clearly explaining her needs to servers. When one restaurant accidentally brought the wrong dish, Maya didn't panic. She calmly explained the mistake, and when the server apologized profusely, Maya said, "It's okay. Mistakes happen. Just bring the correct one now, please." Zara watched from across the table, pride radiating from her face. The girl who had once melted down over the slightest disruption was now handling unexpected changes with grace. When they returned home, Zara told Marcus, "I'm proud of her, and you should be proud of yourself too. You learned to be the father she needed." Marcus didn't trust himself to respond without crying, so he simply nodded, then pulled Zara into a hug. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything, for saving my daughter, for saving me." Zara pulled back and looked him in the eye. "I didn't save anyone," she said firmly. "I just helped you all see what was already there." When move-in day arrived, the entire family made the 3-hour drive together. Marcus drove, with Diane in the passenger seat. David and Zara sat in the back with Maya between them. The car was packed with boxes containing everything Maya had carefully selected for her new life. Blue bedding, her favorite art supplies, the keyboard she had been composing on for years, photos and frames, the worn teddy bear she still kept, though now it was more of a comfort object than a constant companion. The drive was mostly quiet, each person lost in their own thoughts. Marcus kept glancing in the rearview mirror at Maya, trying to memorize this moment. His daughter, no longer the isolated 4-year-old who couldn't speak, was heading off to college. It felt impossible and inevitable all at once. When they arrived on campus, the supported housing building was easy to find. It was smaller than the main dorms, designed specifically for students who needed more structured support. The atmosphere was noticeably calmer than the chaos they had passed on the main quad, where hundreds of families were unloading U-Hauls and crying and hugging. Dr. Chen met them at the entrance, clipboard in hand, and a welcoming smile on her face. She showed them to Maya's apartment, a compact but well-designed space with a small kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom, and a living area that could double as a studio. Large windows let in natural light without being overwhelming. The walls were painted a soft cream color that Maya had pre-approved from photos. "Welcome home," Dr. Chen said to Maya. "Take your time settling in. I'll be in my office if you need anything." She handed Maya a card with her direct phone number and office hours, then left the family to unpack. For the next 3 hours, they worked together to transform the empty apartment into Maya's space. Marcus assembled furniture while Diane organized the kitchen. David hung curtains and Maya's artwork on the walls. Zara helped Maya arrange her bedroom, asking questions about where things should go and following Maya's specific instructions. By late afternoon, The apartment looked lived in and personal. Maya's paintings decorated the walls. Her keyboard was set up in the corner with good lighting. Her clothes were organized in the closet by color and type. The kitchen contained the specific foods Maya could eat comfortably. Everything had a place, and every place had meaning. They ordered pizza for dinner, careful to get one that matched Maya's dietary needs, plain cheese with no unexpected seasonings. They sat around Maya's new dining table, eating and talking about practical matters. Where the nearest grocery store was located, how the campus bus system worked, when Maya's first classes would start. As the evening grew late, they prepared to leave. This was the hardest part. Saying goodbye felt impossible even though they knew it was necessary. Diane hugged Maya first, holding on perhaps a moment too long. "Call me any time," she whispered. "Day or night." "I love you so much." "I love you too," Maya said. She still didn't use those words often, so when she did, they carried extra weight. David offered his hand for their usual high five, but Maya surprised him by initiating a brief hug instead. "Thank you for being patient with me," she said. David's eyes filled with tears. "Always," he managed to say. Zara was next. The goodbye between her and Maya was quieter but no less emotional. They stood facing each other, and Zara put her hands on Maya's shoulders. "You're ready for this," Zara said. "But if you need me, I'm only a phone call away." "I know," Maya said. "Thank you. For everything. For seeing me." "You showed us who you were," Zara replied. "We just learned to look." Finally, Marcus stood before his daughter. He tried to speak but found his throat too tight. Maya looked at him with those eyes that had once seemed so distant, but now held clear understanding and affection. "It's okay to be sad," Maya said. "Transitions are hard for everyone, not just autistic people." Marcus laughed through his tears. "When did you become so wise?" "I've always been this person," Maya said. "You just learned my language." Maya thrived in college, though adjusting to independence required patience. The first few days were a whirlwind. Maya attended orientation sessions, met with her academic advisor, and explored campus carefully. Each new space required assessment. She would enter a building, stand still cataloging sensory information, then decide if she could tolerate being there. The library became her favorite place, quiet, with predictable rules. She discovered a study carrel on the third floor that became hers. She marked it with a small blue cloth. Other students learned to respect her space. Her classes started the second week: art studio, music composition, mathematics, psychology of perception. She avoided classes requiring extensive group work. Her professors knew her needs. One professor, Dr. Harrison, was particularly understanding. He had a nephew with autism and recognized Maya's engagement style. Other supported housing students became familiar faces. Lynn had ADHD. Michael was deaf. Priya had a brain injury. They gathered in the common room evenings, each working on projects, enjoying parallel presence. Maya made her first college friend week 3. Claire was in art studio and had grown up with an autistic sibling. After class, Claire approached Maya's workspace. "This makes me feel calm," Claire said about the painting, "like my brain can rest." They began sitting together, working side by side, friendship growing naturally. By mid-semester, Maya had rhythm. Predictable schedules soothed her. But she began allowing variations, new walking routes. Weekly lunch with Claire. Each variation calculated but representing growth. Hard days still came. Days when dining halls were too loud. Days when schedule changes spiked anxiety. Days missing home. She would call Zara or parents outside scheduled times, receiving support without judgment. Dr. Chen checked in bi-weekly. Maya listed challenges. Hand dryers too loud. Paper towels appeared the following week. Maya's artwork evolved through semester. She incorporated new environment elements. Tree branch patterns from windows. Campus geometries. Student movement rhythms. Professor Williams featured her work in showcases. Faculty observed her working. Maya didn't mind when focused on art. Her music compositions grew sophisticated. She experimented recording her voice, layering it with instruments creating unique soundscapes. Her theory professor encouraged submitting to the annual composition competition. Maya was hesitant about competition and judgment, but with Zara's encouragement during a call, she decided to try. She submitted a 7-minute piece titled Pattern Recognition, complex, unconventional, blending electronic with acoustic elements and layered vocalizations. When winners were announced 2 months later, Maya's piece won second place. The prize included cash and opportunity for orchestra performance at spring concert. There were challenges through first year. Difficult roommate situations requiring mediation, sensory overload from busy campus life, social misunderstandings needing clarification. But Maya navigated each obstacle with skills developed over years of self-advocacy. Difficult roommate situations, sensory overload from campus life, social misunderstandings. But Maya navigated each obstacle with skills developed over years of learning to advocate for herself. She called home twice a week, scheduled video calls at specific times. The spring concert where pattern recognition would be performed became a significant milestone. Maya had never heard her music played by live musicians before. The weeks leading up to the concert were filled with rehearsals she attended, sitting in the back of the auditorium, listening to the orchestra learn her piece. The conductor, Professor Martinez, treated her composition with deep respect, asking Maya questions about tempo and interpretation. "Do you hear this section as flowing or precise?" he would ask. "Precise," Maya would answer, "like measured steps." Professor Martinez would adjust, and the orchestra would play it again until Maya nodded approval. The night of the spring concert arrived. Marcus, Diane, David, and Zara all made the drive to campus. They arrived early, wanting to secure good seats. Maya had requested they sit in the middle section, not too close to the front where the sound might be overwhelming, not too far back where details would be lost. She had calculated the optimal acoustic position. Maya joined them briefly before the concert, wearing a blue dress and looking nervous, but determined. "I've never shared my music like this before," she admitted to Zara. "Only through recordings, where I can control everything. This feels different." "Different can be good," Zara reminded her. "You've already done the hard work. Now you just let people hear it." The concert began. There were 5 pieces performed that night. Maya's was fourth on the program. When Professor Martinez introduced it, he spoke about Maya's unique vision, her ability to translate mathematical patterns into emotional landscapes through sound. Then the orchestra began playing. The opening notes were crystalline and precise, exactly as Maya had imagined them. Then the piece built, layers adding, her recorded voice weaving through the instruments, creating something that felt both structured and wild. In the audience, Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. This was his daughter's voice, literally and figuratively, being shared with hundreds of people. Diane gripped David's hand tightly. Zara sat perfectly still, absorbing every note, recognizing the patterns Maya had been creating since she was young. When the piece ended, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then the auditorium erupted in applause. People stood, some were crying. The orchestra members tapped their bows against their music stands in appreciation. Maya stood from her seat in the wings, walked to the center of the stage where Professor Martinez beckoned her, and bowed briefly. The applause continued. She didn't smile widely or wave or show the typical responses. But anyone who knew her could see the satisfaction in her posture, the peace in her expression. Backstage after the concert, people wanted to talk to Maya about her composition. She answered questions when she could, explaining her process in her direct way. "I hear patterns in everything," she said to one music student. This piece was about recognizing those patterns in unexpected places. Not everyone understood, but many did. By her junior year, Maya had mounted a solo exhibition in the campus gallery. Her work had evolved, incorporating both visual art and sound. Viewers walked through a space filled with paintings while her musical compositions played, creating an immersive experience. The exhibition was reviewed in the newspaper. The critic described Maya's work as a window into a mind that sees connections the rest of us miss, rendering the invisible mathematics of beauty into something we can finally perceive. Maya graduated with honors at 21. Her final project was a multimedia installation combined with a research paper about autism and artistic expression. She presented to a packed auditorium. The audience gave her a standing ovation. That evening, there was a celebration at a restaurant Marcus had rented out. The guest list included family, Maya's friends, professors, and Zara. Marcus stood to make a toast. 21 years ago, a daughter was born. And for the first 4 years of her life, I failed her. I tried to fix something that wasn't broken. I tried to change someone who was already perfect. But then someone wiser than me showed us another way. He looked at Zara. Zara taught us that love means seeing people as they are, not as we wish they were. She taught us that different doesn't mean less. And she taught Maya that her voice mattered, even when that voice expressed itself in unconventional ways. He turned to Maya. Maya, you have taught me more about patience, understanding, and acceptance than I ever taught you. You have challenged my assumptions about what makes a good life. I am honored to be your father. Maya stood. Thank you for learning, she said. That was all. But it was enough. The years that followed brought continued growth. Maya established herself as a working artist, selling pieces through galleries. She continued music, releasing digital albums that found an audience among people who appreciated mathematical approaches to sound. She became a sought-after speaker on neurodiversity. She maintained independence, living in her own apartment with a support coordinator. She had relationships with other neurodivergent people who understood her needs. Marcus watched his daughter build her life with pride deeper than any business achievement. Zara remained in their lives, though her role had evolved. She had earned certifications in autism support and sensory integration therapy. She now trained caregivers and educators, spreading approaches that had worked with Maya. She and Maya met monthly for lunch. On Maya's 25th birthday, she invited Marcus, Diane, David, and Zara to her apartment. She had spent weeks planning. When everyone arrived, they found her home transformed into a gallery, showcasing her life's work. Paintings covered walls. Her keyboard sat with scattered sheet music. Photos documented speaking engagements and exhibitions. In the center of the main room, Maya had created a new installation, mixed media combining elements from every phase of her development. Visual patterns, mathematical formulas, musical notations, woven together. At the center was the blue puppet, preserved in a display case, lit like the precious artifact it was. This is called language, Maya explained. It's about all the ways we communicate, the patterns I see, the music I hear, the words I learned to use, and the first language someone spoke to me in, the one that taught me I could be understood. She pointed to the puppet. Zara stepped forward, tears running down her face but smiling. It's perfect. Maya nodded. I know. Everyone laughed, including Maya. They sat down to dinner, the 5 people who had been there for Maya's journey. Conversation flowed easily, with accommodations made naturally for Maya's processing time and occasional need for quiet. At one point, Marcus looked around the table and felt overwhelming gratitude, not just for the outcome, but for the journey itself, for every difficult moment that had taught him something, for every breakthrough that reminded him why he kept trying, for every person who had shown up with patience and love. The world had told him his daughter was broken. Specialists had offered interventions designed to make her more normal, and he had believed them for a while. But Zara had shown him something different, that Maya was whole exactly as she was, that her way of experiencing the world wasn't wrong, just different, and that the real problem wasn't Maya's autism. It was a world that couldn't be bothered to accommodate people who thought differently. So Marcus had learned. He had adapted. He had changed his expectations and his entire understanding of what it meant to be a good father. And in doing so, he had discovered his daughter. Not the daughter he had imagined. The daughter who actually existed, brilliant, creative, honest, and so full of love in her own unique way. As the evening drew to a close, Maya walked everyone to the door. Thank you for coming, Maya said, offering each person a brief hug. Marcus was last. As Maya embraced him, she whispered something only he could hear. You became the father I needed. Marcus held her a moment longer. You made me better, he replied. We made each other better, Maya corrected. That's how family works. She was right, as always. Marcus walked to his car with Diane and David. The night was clear, stars visible despite city lights. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and joys. Maya would continue building her career and life. Marcus would continue supporting her while respecting her independence. Their relationship would keep evolving. But tonight, Marcus allowed himself to simply feel gratitude. For the moment Zara had walked through his door, for the first time Maya had laughed, for every small breakthrough and major milestone, for the journey that had taught him the most important lesson of his life. That love means learning to see people as they truly are, and celebrating what you find there. He drove home through quiet streets, thinking about the 4-year-old who had rocked in corners, thinking about the 13 nannies who had tried and failed, and thinking about the 14th, who had succeeded not because she was more skilled, but because she had arrived with willingness to learn Maya's language instead of demanding Maya learn hers. That had made all the difference. Everything had changed in the moment Zara sat down on that floor and simply observed. She hadn't brought fancy credentials or promising treatments. She had brought presence and patience and a belief that Maya was already complete, already worthy, already perfect in her own way. And Maya had shown her that she was right. When Marcus arrived home, he made tea and sat in his office looking at photos. Maya at 4, vacant-eyed and distant. Maya at 10, laughing while knocking down block towers. Maya at 14, planning her future. Maya at 25, standing beside her installation. The progression was remarkable. But what struck Marcus most was that in every photo, Maya looked like Maya. The same person, just increasingly connected to the world. She hadn't transformed into someone new. She had simply been given the tools and support to be fully herself. And being fully herself had turned out to be extraordinary. Marcus finished his tea and turned off the lights. Tomorrow he would call Maya to thank her for dinner. He would check in with Diane. He would maybe reach out to Zara to express gratitude that never felt adequately expressed. But tonight, he simply sat in quiet darkness, thinking about the miracle of truly seeing another person, of learning their language, of accepting them exactly as they are. 13 nannies had failed because they arrived with solutions for problems that didn't exist. They saw a child who needed fixing, a disability that needed overcoming, a life that needed normalization. But Zara had arrived with empty hands and open eyes. She had looked at Maya and seen not a puzzle to solve, but a person to understand. And in that understanding, everything had become possible. Marcus smiled in darkness, remembering that first laugh. The sound had been so unexpected, so bright and clear and full of joy. It had cracked open the prison of isolation he had built in his own mind, showing him that his daughter had been present all along, just waiting for someone to learn how to reach her. Now Maya was out in the world, making art and music, speaking truth, helping others understand that different doesn't mean less. She was living proof that when we approach people with acceptance instead of judgment, with curiosity instead of assumption, transformation happens. Not transformation of the person we're trying to understand, but transformation of ourselves. We become better, more patient, more compassionate, more willing to see the world through someone else's eyes. Marcus stood and walked to the window, looking out at city lights. Somewhere out there, other families were struggling with children they didn't understand. Other parents were hiring specialists and trying interventions and desperately seeking the key that would unlock their child. And maybe, if they were very lucky, they would find someone like Zara. Someone who understood that the key had been in the child's hands all along. The parents just needed to learn how to see it. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.